Hello, I'm Duncan. I'm the architecture editor at Golf Digest. Today we're going to examine one hole from Royal Troon Golf Club in Ayrshire, Scotland, the 8th hole called the Postage Stamp, widely considered one of the best par 3s in golf. What makes the Postage Stamp noteworthy is how impactful it is for its diminutive length, just 123 yards. In calm conditions, it plays even shorter since the tee is leveled onto a 25-foot high sand ridge and hits down to a green notched against a lower dune. It's a sand wedge for good players and appears to be a basic shot with plenty of turf surrounding the green. But the elevated tee can freeze golfers by giving them a top-down view of the hole's hazards, specifically the 5 deep bunkers staged at various compass points around the small putting surface. Hitting into any one of them, particularly the sheer-faced pit 5 feet below and to the right of the green, usually comes at the cost of a stroke, if not more. The size of the dainty green, squash-shaped and roughly 3,000 square feet, or about half the area of the typical green in the US, complicates matters further. It's a tiny target, and when the typically gusty winds are blowing off the nearby ocean, hitting into the Postage Stamp becomes the single most dangerous shot at Troon. The Postage Stamp is simply one of the most beguiling and taunting 123 yards in links golf, packing more punch per pound than holes 5 times as big. It's a knockout artist, and its most flamboyant TKO was Hermann Tissie's, a German amateur playing in the 1950 Open Championship. During the first round, Tissie's carded a 15 on the hole, continually hitting from one hazard into another. One writer described the misadventure as a horrible species of ping pong played between bunkers. Greg Norman has also taken its punch. He was 7 strokes behind the leader at the start of the final round of the 1989 Open before shooting a course record 64. The only blemish on his card? A bogey at the 8th. Had Norman just made par, his 63 would have won the tournament by a stroke. Instead, it got him into a 4-hole playoff with Wayne Grady and Mark Calcavecchia, which Calcavecchia won when Norman hit his 3rd shot over the green and out of bounds on the final hole. Tiger Woods matched Norman's record 64 in the 3rd round of the 1997 Open, during which he made par at the Postage Stamp. Woods then needed a Norman-like Sunday charge to get back into contention. He birdied the 4th and 5th hole in the final round to raise hopes, but then made a messy 6th at the 8th, effectively ending any hopes of a comeback. The Postage Stamp was a late addition to the course at Troon, which received its royal designation in 1978, the year of its centennial anniversary. Troon is located in the town of the same name on the southwest coast of Scotland, about 35 miles south of Glasgow. Like most golf courses founded in the 19th century, it can be tricky to figure out who built what and when, since the early links were usually the product of evolution and continual revision and expansion, often executed internally by club professionals and club members. The Club of Troon was established in 1878 and began with a small 5-hole course. Over the next decade, the club expanded first to 6 and then 12 holes, mostly under the guidance of the club's first professional, George Strath of St. Andrews. The exact timeline is uncertain, but we know that by 1888, Troon had 18 holes, with the new additions likely built under the guidance of the second professional, Willie Fernie. At this time, Troon looked quite similar to the patterning of its holes today. What we notice here is that the first 7 holes of the original 18-hole course run straight out along the coast of the Firth of Clyde, concluding at a region of steeper sandhills with a hole called Turnberry. If that name sounds familiar, it's because the golf club Turnberry, another Open Championship course, is located about 25 miles south of Troon. Incidentally, another of the great early links, Prestwick, where 24 Open Championships were played between 1860 and 1825, borders Troon directly to the south. Members of each club would often play straight out, jump over to the other course, and keep going. They'd lunch in the opposite clubhouse and then play their way back afterwards. After the Turnberry hole, the map shows the par 4 8th veering left into the high dunes before turning right at the 9th. This is where Troon members would access the Prestwick course and vice versa. Compare this to the routing of the current course. This is the Postage Stamp here. You'll notice it's not present on either the 1888 map nor another map from 1897 that was developed to show the boundaries of the land where the club was leasing at the time. According to writings, the Postage Stamp was originally called Iooss, after the large domed crag visible in the Firth. What's interesting is that Iooss, in this 1888 version of Troon, was the 6th hole and looks to be a par 4. It's the following hole, Turnberry, that's the par 3, playing toward a green tucked into the dunes. This same configuration is shown on the 1897 map. Exactly when the current postage stamp was built over here, most likely by Willie Fernie on the other side of the current 7th hole, is unclear, but it must have happened between 1897 and 1909, and most likely around 1900. Writings from 1909 describe the 8th hole, Iooss, as a par 3 that played toward the water to a blind green. That's definitely not this hole. It looks like the old Iooss and Turnberry holes, the 6th and the 7th, were combined to make the current 6th hole, a 600-yard par 5 that retained the name Turnberry, that ends at the same point in the dunes. That means when the new par 3 was added in the high dunes to replace the one that was lost in making the long par 5 6th, the name Iooss traveled with it. In 1909, the green for the new Iooss par 3, now playing as the 8th, was located 50 yards beyond and to the left of the current green. The hole demanded a long blind shot of approximately 180 yards over a sandhill dune to a secluded green, often into groups of golfers that couldn't be seen putting out. The hole was considered a weakness, so in 1910, the club moved the green to its current location at the base of the dune that previously had to be hit over, presumably, again, under the guidance of Willie Fernie. The new iteration of the 8th was unconventional from the start, and also not well liked. The small size of the green, the difficulty of stopping balls on it in the wind, and the peculiar location eating into the base of the dune made it Troon's most controversial hole. One local writer called it the worst hole I ever saw. Another compared the green to the shape of a dining room table and ridiculously small. Club members came to calling the hole the pocket handkerchief and the wee devil and other vulgarities, but the name that stuck most and helped immortalize the hole was the one given by architect and golfing great Willie Park Jr., who described the green upon seeing it after its 1910 debut as a pitching surface skimmed down to the size of a postage stamp. Interestingly, the old green, farther and to the left of the current green, still exists and is played occasionally when work is being done to the hole. The early version of the hole didn't have the same bunkering configuration as we see there today. There was one larger cross bunker that needed to be carried and more grass surrounding the perimeter. That changed prior to the 1923 Open, the first of 10 Troon is hosted. James Braid, the 5-time Open champion and preeminent Scottish golf course architect, was brought on to prepare the course for the Open and added dozens of bunkers all over the course, including several to the 8th. The bunker just off to the green to the right is the most penal, but the most famous is the one directly left, the coffin bunker, which Braid added for the 1923 championship. Before this and the bunker short left were added, members often intentionally played their shots off the hill to the left and waited for the ball to release down to the putting surface. Braid's bunker put a stop to that tactic, but it was originally much higher on the dune, perched above the putting surface. As the years went by and a generation of golfers blasted out of the sand, the bottom gradually sank to the point that it was eventually below the surface, resembling, truly, a coffin. Willie Fernie predicted before the first Open that scores would range anywhere between 1 and 12. For every 2 that was written on the scorecard, he predicted the 8th would claim just as many 6s. That's not quite the way it turned out, at least not in the modern era. Over the last several Opens, birdies outweighed double bogeys and others by a 4-to-1 margin, though there are about an equal number of bogeys. The impact of the postage stamp is felt not just during tournaments. It demonstrated that length isn't necessary to create interest or to test good players. Set up properly, a 120-yard shot with a short iron or wedge could be just as vexing as a cross-hazard drive or long iron. The postage stamp quickly became respected, then beloved, and its popularity gave architects who came later the latitude to build their own short par 3s and small greens. Even to this day, when we see a short par 3 with a small green, we often describe it as a postage stamp hole, like Pine Valley's 10th, the 7th at Pebble Beach, the 15th at Cypress Point, the 15th at Los Angeles Country Club's North Course, all the way up to the Island Green 17th hole at TPC Sawgrass, built in 1980. The closest thing to the original postage stamp is a relatively new addition to Royal Liverpool, the remodeled tabletop added in 2020 by architect Martin Ebert. Hitting this green in the coastal winds and salvaging par when you don't is almost as challenging as the real thing. Yet for all the postage stamp's lore and frequent terror, it's not a one-dimensional hunter that knows only blood. In the 1973 Open, at age 71, playing in just his second competitive tournament of the year, and in what would be fittingly his last voyage to the Open Championship, Gene Sarazen stood on the high tee of the Postage Stamp in round 1 and swung a punchy 5-iron. The ball sailed to the green, hopped 3 times, and rolled into the cup for a 1. It was Sarazen's first hole-in-one in 40 years, and what you might say is a fitting and conciliatory gesture by the hole to a worthy adversary and one of the game's greats. In the end, the Postage Stamp has given back far more than it takes. Well, that's it for Troon and the Postage Stamp. Thanks for watching. If you have other holes you'd like to see us cover in this series, let us know in the comments.